That up. How funny, huh? Good. Yeah, it's that time of day with the sun. Hold on. Good, thank you. You're welcome. Now we're going to do a little bit of reading. Just started a video, not a live, no. It is really nice. Sun is shining. Okay, which one? Good choice. Ancient History. I love this book. This book was written. It's fallen apart. It has the different Oriental, Greek, and Roman coins. It's pretty interesting. D.C. Heath and Company Publishers, Boston, New York, Chicago, 1913. This ancient history I trust, no extended introduction. This ancient history needs, I trust, no extended introduction. In its preparation, due regard has been paid to the recommendations of the Committee of Seven and the Committee of Five, to the requirements of the College Entrance Examination Board, and to the opinions of practice teachers in various parts of the country. The pedagogical apparatus supplied may be used in a variety of ways. It is sufficient here to point out that the references preceding each chapter have been chosen with a view to their use by the pupil as subjects for reports and essays, that the studies following each chapter are based on the text and are intended to furnish material for stimulating discussions in the classroom, and that the maps and illustrations form an integral part of the text for purposes of study and recitation. It has seemed wise, from both an educational and a historical standpoint, to treat the geography of the Mediterranean world as a unit, and to set forth in two final chapters, similarly unified, the private antiquities of the classical peoples. Teachers who prefer the traditional order may easily separate the sections dealing with Greece from those dealing with Rome and treat them separately. Say when. Ooh, the Greco-Roman worlds. Conquests of Alexander. Social conditions in the 1st and 2nd centuries. Nobles, knights, and commons. The sum must be multiplied 4 or 5 times to find its modern equivalent. Since in antiquity interest rates were higher, and the purchasing power of money was greater than today, such huge private fortunes are surpassed only by those of the present age. Narcissus, the secretary of Claudius. That would be good for those classes. Good, thank you. The Meaning of Man. I love this book. Say when. Oh yeah, we're just doing random requests. 104. Did we read this part the other day? Page 100 and 101? I think so. Let's start. I'm going to start on page 100 anyways. Good, thank you. Yeah, we are having a black and green tea with some coconut milk. And some water. Cheers. Nice big clouds. Big fluffy clouds. Yeah, I'll probably do that later. It does look like that, I see. Yes. Yeah, I'll read a little bit of that. Open this a little bit more in the sunlight. I'll be in the sun more. Page 100. We are saved by hope, for here below the redemption is effected only in germ. This world of time, of crisis, of progress, of first fruits and expectation exists simply to give its scope for development. It will not come to full fruition until the day when days shall be no more. The Christian is, therefore, a man who, forgetting the things that are behind, stretches forward to the things that are before, who is ceaselessly beckoned on from the thing that he is to the thing that he is to be. He is one who does not attain but hopes. And the meaning of this tension, essential to hope, is the thing we have now to consider. The body is redeemed in hope alone. That is to say, it remains unsubmissive, a trial, a temptation, and under one of its aspects, the wound inflicted by its original sin is always open. The soul's hold on the body has been weakened by original sin and not reknit by baptism. The grace of Christ has healed the soul and regards its relation to God, but not in any direct manner has regards its relation to the body. Its original mastery is not restored, and the interior distance that separates the soul and body remains intact. Whatever efforts the person may make to recover his nature and knit up his unity, this distance will never be wholly abolished, and the body will always be a material mass against which the spirit will beat in vain. Never perhaps has the soul a more acute perception of this than at the moment when, after the most drastic purifications, it seems about to tear away the last veil and look upon its God. Break the web of this sweet encounter. It can but cry, but the web does not break, for it is the body itself, inasmuch as is not yet glorified. Here it would seem we hold the root of the spirit's sorrowful longing, inasmuch as it is tied to this flesh. It is still as one who seeks and can never fully find either its own being or its God. If now we ask the meaning of this tragic tension, we shall have to say, first, that it is a call to our liberty, The body is given us back redeemed in hope that we should redeem it in reality. We are faced with a choice. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, so as to obey the lusts thereof. Neither yield ye your members as instruments of iniquity unto sin, but present yourself to God as those that are alive, risen from the dead, and your members as instruments of justice unto God. Instruments of sin or of sanctity, that is the sole real alternative for the body, and through the body for the spirit. But by that very fact, God takes us into partnership with himself to refashion our total being. And this effort of spiritualization is what we call chastity. Not now simply a consecration, but a virtue armed at all points, virile, playing the man. The body has to be restored, subdued, chastised, a slow process since it has to do with matter, and hard since this matter is rebellious. At the first stage, if we may venture so to schematize, the will to chastity is frequently overcome by the evil that I will not. At the second, the virtue takes root but commonly has to fight. The flesh is simultaneously rebellious and held in check. This state the ancients called continence, and certain saints have known it to the day of their death. At the third, the body is tamed and reconciled to the soul, which rules it now in peace, and that is temperance. But this peace remains an armed peace. Its first law is an evangelical vigilance, and its only security lies in ceaselessly renewed conquest. Castigo corpus merum et in servatum redigo. For the rest, this strife remains fraternal. The Christian never forgets that his body by nature is the good and faithful companion. Bonus plain fidesque comes caro spirituo bono. That it is a burden not on account of its presence simply, but its corruption, and that henceforth it is redeemed and becomes a temple of the Spirit. No man ever hateth his own flesh, and the Christian least of all, since his flesh is the flesh of a member of Christ. Severe as he may seem to be on his body, the severity is always enveloped in love. It does not aim at a separation, but a closer embrace. He chastises the body to make it a better companion, and not in view of any impossible divorce. If extreme cases arise, if ever we have to pluck out an eye or cut off a hand, that is only in so far as these members may have become pure instruments of sin, and for the integral salvation of the body itself, as well as the soul. It is our duty, for the rest, to nourish and cherish our own flesh, no less than to clothe the naked and to give drink to the thirsty, and to succor him who lies bleeding on the roadside. The strangest mistake, in fact, is made about the Christian attitude to bodily suffering. It is supposed that the Christian is bound to regard it has primarily a direct benefit, and to accept it as a pure blessing. If that were so, Christianity would be simply inhumane. The truth of the matter is that suffering for the Christian is at once a trial and a call. It is a trial and thus an evil. It was not made by God, but by sin. And that is precisely why it bears on man so hardly. It unmans, unnerves, and tempts who does not know the frenzy of blasphemy and despair that so many pains bring along with them. Consequently, the first duty of the Christian is to combat suffering, to restore integrity and strength to the body that God has given us, to save the suffering flesh so that it can once more serve the soul and serve God. Such an effort is truly religious and truly Catholic, and very consciously acting, thus the Christian cooperates with God the Creator, who gave the body its life, with God the Redeemer, who heals it with the touch of his own flesh, and with our Mother, the Church, so full of active compassion and suppliant prayer for her suffering children. There is a Mass for the sick, in which we may read, Almighty and everlasting God, the abiding health of all who believe in thee, graciously hear our prayer for thy servants who are sick, that being restored to health, that may come with thanksgiving to praise thee in thy church. There is a sacrament for the sick, a normal effect on the health of the body as well as the soul, has witnessed this prayer from extreme unction. O our Redeemer, by the grace of thy Holy Spirit, heal the ills of this sick man, close his wounds, forgive his sins, banish all sorrows of body or soul, and give him back to health within and without, so that, restored by the mercy, he may be able once more to go about his daily tasks. An admirable supplication, humble, holy, and tender. She who speaks there is indeed a mother. She loves this poor body mingled with soul, and longs to save them both. But pain is no mere brutal, useless, unintelligible trial. It has its purpose, it serves. For him who suffers has for him who sees another suffer. It is a call to redemptive charity, to the charity that is imitation of Christ, and by which the Christian saves his fellow in the act of saving himself. When he stands in the presence of suffering, the Christian is to imitate the serving Christ, who stoops in distress and must tender his hope, his prayer, and his efforts to help the sufferer. That is one of the essential traits of Christian charity. If we would understand its aright, we have but to consider the parable of the Good Samaritan. It is nothing less than a concrete definition of the essence of the relation of charity, which consists in looking on my fellow man as a neighbor, and in making him another self. Now, this relation obtains between the man who suffers and the man who stoops to help him. Stoops. It is a relation of compassion. Suffering is thus the essential call that brings these two men together, and which will prompt the Samaritan to fulfill himself by forgetting himself in the other. Its first service, then, is to compel us to open ourselves, for man remains hard and egotistic even when redeemed. He readily isolates himself, and his own body has in a shell which protects, and has in a prison which confines. Both shell and prison have to be broken up before he can truly commune with others, and it is precisely the acceptance of suffering that breaks it and opens his heart to love. The levity and the priests pass by on the other side and do not stop. They have not seen the suffering because they have not accepted it. Unfaithful alike to its call and their own duty, the Samaritan accepts it. He allows it to make its way into himself, though through his flesh it moves his spirit and awakens him to his true vocation. It reveals to him, since it puts it in act, this relation of compassion that links him of right with others, and which is one of the essential dimensions of charity. It would be a complete mistake to see only a movement of sensibility in the action of the Samaritan. It was the act of one who, by way of corporal emotion, discovers, accepts, and realizes his vocation. Misery is once more a call to our liberty, but so that liberty should give itself to charity and open itself, thus a grace that comes to save, and save together by making them neighbors, both him who stoops to show mercy and him who receives it. For in the sufferer also pain is a call to redemptive charity, but by imitation of the suffering Christ has the medievals had it. It was not God who made suffering, and yet Christ has taken it on himself and sanctified it and made it a direct means to redemption. And henceforth what we have to welcome in it is the call of the love that strips itself of all things. Nudus nudum fessum sequae. The love that consumes and consummates at once, which nails to the cross, because the work of redemption continues, and so that each shall make his personal contribution to the consummation of the Church by giving to the passion of the head its saving radiance through his own flesh. An act of liberty, an act of free acceptance and welcome, is needed to transform suffering, to invest it with its divine meaning, to make it a communion with the sufferings of Christ. But here again, this act saves others only in saving ourselves. For Christ, the perfect image of the invisible God, came to save us by recreating us in his image, and henceforth we can attain neither the consistence of our being nor the full extent of our influence, save by imitation of the crucified. All the misery of the body, its weight, temptation, and pain, is thus a call of the love that consummates all. The ways of love are always mysterious, and its action is devouring, because it is the last reality, and because it reaches the center of the person to remake him in its image. The way of the passion was opened through quivering human flesh by love. It is the call of the infinite love to our own love, And when we set our feet on this path, we respond to the deepest call. God is love, and there is nothing beyond that. We are in touch with the supremely formative energy, for without love I am nothing. Simultaneously with the salvation of the other, we accomplish our own, and by attaining the truth, the efficacy, the fullness of our redeemed being, and therein precisely is the glory of God. But as we perceive the definitive measure of all our the definitive measure of all our values lies in the reference to Christ. I love the cross, says Charles de Foucauld, because Christ Jesus loved it. In Christ once more, through this body of misery, by grace and liberty, we are drawn to life eternal, and suffering in union with his lies and the hidden source, and the mysterious seed of everlasting joy. Such is the law of the being who is saved in hope, and who waits for the full redemption of his body. With Christ and by Christ, the Christian should say to his God, "A body thou hast fitted to me, behold, I come to do thy will." In its final significance, therefore, the body of the wayfarer, far from the Lord, is essentially a means to sacrifice, and all is summed up in St. Paul's exhortation. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercy of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, pleasing unto God, your reasonable service. There comes a day when the body's days of service are done, and it is now no more than a corpse. The soul has fled. They give back the body to nature. From beneath this creature, life has ebbed away. O death, canst thou sustain it? Nay, it has passed beyond time, beyond essence and number, and now they lower it on a rope into the shadows, like a bucket into a well. St. Paul said, the body is sworn in weakness, in dishonor, and corruption, unresisting flesh, soon dissolved, divided from its soul, and thus, with all its nobility, gone, given over to the law of nature, and falling back into a nameless existence, which is but a form of nothingness. Yes, we'll pause there, page 106. Yeah, I did see that. I was going to respond to it. I just wanted to finish it fluidly. Best I can, yeah. Oh, yes. Like giving of oneself to give to others or to heal others. Yes, I know what you're referring to. With the suffering, sure. So some are asking in class, does that mean they're supposed to make themselves suffer? I know other moderators, when they get asked those kind of questions, will refer to, as opposed to looking at it like suffering, taking care of yourself. Cleanliness is next to godliness. By caring for yourself and your own mental and physical health, which sometimes may seem like suffering, cleaning up your room. You're helping others by caring for yourself. Sure. Yes, exactly. Yeah, we were discussing that a little bit earlier too. What was funny, my son Robbie, he mentioned, we were talking about that and emotions, and when did we go from just grunting, and when did emotions come into play? Sadness, happiness, a conscious awareness. He said it was always there. It's like there's always been, we've always felt emotions. He was very direct about it too, like, duh. We've always had anger and sadness. And what about sarcasm? Right, and then that segues into the individual journey. Personal. I didn't really get sarcasm till I was in my 20s. Right? Didn't register. Yeah, so for some, maybe it still doesn't exist. I left it at that. I think it's beautiful. He has that kind of insight that, yeah, we're human. We've always had sadness, emotions, and felt those things. I left it at that. I like that. I agree. Yes. Go ahead, thank you. It's a really nice sunny day. We have some snow coming. And one more storm of the year. I say that last time. The season, right. Yes, we're doing that? Oh, good. So someone in class was recognizing earlier. Yeah, so if you stretch your arm out straight is a good way to do the exercise. I don't know if you can keep it in focus. Anyways, if you do that, stretch out, and just doing the simple exercise, put some pressure, and where do you feel it? Coming this way, right? So if you do it with your ring finger, well, it's going this way, right? Totally different, right? Yeah. So we were doing that in class. And that goes into when you want to practice breathing into your muscles, your cells, healing tension in certain areas. Right, so if you hold different positions, tension, release, take a breath while you're putting pressure. Release the pressure and then take a breath. You feel a huge difference. It's good to do that with these too. And open up the shoulders is another good exercise to display that. And you take a deep breath and you'll feel it in different areas. Expanding different places that might be tight or... Yeah, exactly. Really? Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Really? Oh, that's cool. Kudos. Yeah, welcome. Namaste. Good, thank you. Sure. I have that one right here. This is a favorite in a lot of classes. Listening with the third ear. I would say one of the best books ever written. Say when. $2.94. This one. That's interesting. Yeah. It's funny. Page 290. 289.
Thank you, Papa.
287. Hey.
Why, hello, Mary.
Hello, Roberto. What are you doing?
Oh, you want to get fancy and call me Roberto now.
Roberto.
I was just gonna read Neurotic Camouflage.